I cannot believe it, but it is issue 50 of PRBites already. I've been reading these newsletters aloud now for, I think, about 8, 9 or 10 of the newsletters, but been running it since earlier this year, where I've been doing the newsletter several times a week on now Tuesdays and Thursdays, every week, apart from when I'm on holiday or when my diary is just too full, which unfortunately does happen quite a bit. My name is Richard Mitton. If you are new to this feed for the first time, because I know some new people have been signing up recently, and if you don't know me, I'm a comms journalist podcast, if you like. I'm someone that studies the world of communications now and does a podcast newsletter. I'm a former news editor. I was in hard news for many years, a broadcaster and journalist, and a news anchor on basically talk radio, talk news radio. I did that for quite a few years. And also I was a public relations officer in European politics. And I guess I'm a communications technologist as well, as I am fascinated and have looked at communications technology for a long time, from everything from like blogging to video and all kinds of things like that. But anyway, enough about me. Let's get into today's newsletter. And welcome to Tuesday. I hope everything is going well for you. This whole newsletter is probably going to take me about, 10 minutes for me to read, as it always does. And if you'd like to get the hard copy of this, then you can by going to thepublicrelationspodcast.com, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, and just click on the newsletter link there. So today, let's have a look at Tuesday's focus, turning mess-ups into PR opportunities. How one agency got a country on board as a client, although just kind of touching on it. What do you need to focus on as an agency next? And what would you do when a national healthcare provider hits a comms crisis and you're brought in to help them solve it? Let's start off with the I Spotted section first. And I kind of subtitled this section in the newsletter as "Messing Up Can Lead to Great PR." Now, Ray Gunn, that's the Australian breakdancer, if you haven't heard of her yet, went viral at the Olympics, not for winning, but for scoring 0 points and generating countless memes. And despite the criticism, she's reportedly close to signing a deal with network TV shows like Dancing with the Stars, where celebrities team up with professional dancers. Now, to me, Ray Gunn's story shows up once again how embracing failure can actually turn things into a positive. First of all, there was the backlash, and we've seen this so many times in comms crisis. She initially faced a really heavy backlash and went silent for a while, a pretty common approach for any organisation in that situation, of course. And when she finally responded, admitting how hard she'd tried in the competition and how the abuse had affected her, key figures, the breakdancing judges and even Olympic officials, voiced their support for her. Now, whether that was orchestrated by the Olympic PR team or not, this backing started to help change the tide of the narrative. And as we often see in crisis comms, narratives can be influenced more by outside voices of support than the subject itself speaking up, especially if those voices or those outside voices are seen to carry some sort of authority, like the voices of judges or officials. But what's really interesting here, though, as you look at what's happened over the past week or so, is how her team, or actually probably outside publicists who spotted the opportunity, have leaned into the memes instead of hiding from them. And what I mean by that is that by embracing the narrative and playing along with them, this strategy could not only help them rebuild her reputation, but could even elevate her to a sort of celebrity status and a career even as a public figure. You know, for shows like Dancing with the Stars or I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which bank on featuring people trending right now to maintain viewer interest because they've been going on so long, Ray Gunn is an attractive trend for producers to try and jump on and bring in the people following her and the interest in her to elevate their own shows. So what can you take away from this for regular clients? I think the message here is clear, actually. When you mess up, especially in an embarrassing way, but not an offensive or legally awkward way, there's room to flip the narrative by accepting it and playing into it by laughing along with those laughing at you. You know, a tongue-in-cheek response can soften the impact of that initial incident by showing a sense of humour and the humility to laugh at yourself. We will see what happens with Ray Gunn, but I think it's quite interesting to see the way that the narrative has turned around on that and how by laughing along with it, it is actually moving her forward now as a brand, whether she ever intended that to as well. And by the way, Ray Gunn, if you just search for it, you'll find her real name online as well. Next section I had in the newsletter was what people have been telling me, and I had a really interesting chat actually with 2 agency owners the other day about the future of PR, and we were talking about that and what they're focusing on now. And there are 2 key takeaways that I think stood out for me. Number one was reputation management. The demand for reputation management clearly continues to grow. and they're seeing this really growing over in the future as well. Social media still continues to be a real hotbed for fake news or allegations or whatever it is that can call out a brand when it's unfair. And the challenge here is not convincing people of the need for it. The point this person was making was but proving you're the one to handle it for them. So it's less about what you do and more about why you should be the trusted expert to actually handle it, which is quite interesting emphasis difference. The second one was about second-guessing clients. Now, bear with me on this because there's a couple of points. There's a growing need to second-guess clients, according to this person I was talking to. There are two aspects. Firstly, the need to really understand client goals. Recent research shows that PR agencies often have a different perception of a client's goals than the clients themselves. So it remains essential to understand what the client really wants and what will demonstrate success to them, whatever their values or the goals or the measurement is, if it's not a clear ROI. The person I was speaking to was saying that they're still asked to organise events and stunts. And often, if those are felt to go well, that's enough. That's all the client actually needs. But there's this second element then, and that is the need to try and second guess what others within this organisation will need to see to judge it as a success too. Now, so in other words, while you may be tasked with putting on a stunt or an event by a person who commissions that work, if you want to get repeat business, you need to think about what might be the questions others within the organisation might be asking. For example, CEOs are likely to be looking far more for clear ROI, return on investment, while chief marketing officers might be more concerned about how creative the event setup was. And by providing results for everyone, by making sure that as you build the strategy, you're answering all these different things, even if you've never spoken to these people directly, you increase the chances of getting repeat business. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, on what your current priorities are. What are the things that you're really focusing on for next year? You can connect with me on LinkedIn by searching for Richard Midson, Midson, or through the publicrelationspodcast.com, where you will find links to get hold of me there too. Next section in the newsletter was called Updates, and sometimes little things remind me why doing this podcast newsletter is worth doing. And one of those happened last week. Proudly, the PR platform with a database of journalists mentioned the Public Relations Podcast in a list of 10 top PR podcasts to follow. And to be honest, it's quite flattering to be mentioned alongside some of the giants in the podcasting world in the PR space. It felt really nice to do. I've actually had some really nice direct messages on LinkedIn recently, especially about this new PRBites format, and it means a lot to me when I get messages like this. I'll be honest, it really does, because it helps to remind me, and just kind of in those moments where I think, oh gosh, this takes too much time, it helps to remind me that it is providing some value, or hopefully some inspiration to you and to others, which is why you're following along with it. So it does keep me going. So thank you so much to Browley, and thank you also to you for sending me those messages too. Right, couple more sections to go. Next one is tip from a guest. Focus on the unusual. This was a great observation from a guest on the podcast not long back. To make a real impact with your PR campaign, all you need to do is something unexpected. And my guest was pointing to a story about the California governor, Gavin Newsom, making headlines by joining a river cleanup crew and actually getting into the muck of the river, actually getting in there and cleaning up rubbish themselves from the canals, which is an unexpected move. It's far from the typical press conference or the staged, obviously it's a staged event, but far from that sort of cliched politician keeps clean while telling others to do stuff. And it grabbed the media's attention. It showed his commitment in a way that words alone couldn't. Those pictures summed it up far better than any kind of announcement or statement could have ever done. And the key takeaway here from my guest was, don't just stick to predictable actions like planting a tree or opening a building or smiling at a community event. Think outside the box and get your leaders to do something surprising that aligns with your message, but people wouldn't expect them to do normally, or would think they're too pretty to do. It would break the narrative of how they perceive them. The more unconventional, the better. Obviously invite the media, capture compelling visuals and share them widely, but this kind of authenticity or authentic appearance cuts through that noise and makes people take notice. Okay, 2 more sections to go. Getting clients. And actually just touching on one here. It was a quick story, actually, from someone I was talking to the other day, illustrating the power of referrals for getting business. And the person I was talking to had been doing some work for a country to help with their trade with other countries. And another country heard about this work, and the ambassador for that country, follow along with it here, reached out to that person I was talking to see if they would represent them too. So they're now representing two different countries, literally actual countries, in this particular trade topic area. And at all levels, from local PR to international affairs, it just shows that referrals remain a key way to get business, whether you are doing this on the street, literally between one shopkeeper to the next shopkeeper who says, could you help us, to even national governments as well. That simple fact of seeing what you're doing and hearing that you're doing a good job and knowing about that is a great way still of getting business. And I know a lot of people that I'm talking to get their business through referrals. And finally, and my apologies for my tone of voice today because I've got a cold. But anyway, whatever. Finally, a PR puzzle, as I like to have in these newsletters, and it's this. Sit back and relax while you think about how you would manage this. You're managing PR for a national healthcare provider that runs a chain of private hospitals. And recently, a prominent news outlet published an investigative report claiming that one of the hospitals overcharged patients for routine procedures and billed them for services they never received. Now, this story is starting to gain traction, and patients across the country are voicing their concerns and frustrations on social media. So the trust in this healthcare provider is rapidly eroding, and you need to act quickly to manage this crisis and rebuild some credibility. So in the newsletter, I gave you two options. Option one was this, and you can choose just one option here. Which do you pick? Is it number one, do you implement a patient bill of rights initiative? So in other words, announce a new policy that includes clearer billing, detailed explanations of charges, and a promise of compensation for any proven overcharges, then launch a campaign to promote those changes? Or do you host a live Ask the CEO broadcast, organising live online sessions where the CEO addresses the issue directly, takes questions from patients, explains corrective measures, and introduces new safeguards to prevent future issues? So what would you go for? Would you go for the Patient Bill of Rights initiative, or would you go for the Ask the CEO live Q&A? Personally, what I would do if I had to choose, I would go for implementing the Patient's Bill of Rights. To me, this option offers a clear, long-term solution that directly tackles the core issue of overcharging and transparency. It gives patients a solid assurance that their concerns are being addressed. It sends that message out, and it provides a framework for compensation as well, which shows some real accountability from the point of view of the company. Well, I think doing the Ask the CEO broadcast, it is bold, and it shows a level of transparency. It could so easily be seen as just damage control if there isn't enough action to back it up. And it also provides an opportunity for disgruntled people to attack the company, whether their claims are valid or not. It could just end up into a shouting match. But what do you think? What would you do? What would be, out of those two, what would be your choices? Or perhaps what would be your third choice that you would go for as well? As always with those scenarios, I limit it just to kind of make it a bit quicker because we could go on all day. That is it for today. That's the 50th edition of PRBites. I will try and have another one for you on Thursday. Lots more coming up on the Public Relations podcast, plus also Comms Question Time, which is well and truly under production now. And we did the first episode. I'll tell you now, actually, just to round this up. We did the first episode the other day, and it was amazing. I had two agencies, myself, and we were bouncing ideas off each other as to how to deal with a couple of scenarios put through by listeners. And it was just really interesting. Because as we started to get into the conversation, more and more ideas started coming out as we were brainstorming this. So whether you're involved in comms or whether you're doing comms for some other organisation, then I think anyone will find something quite interesting there. And even if not necessarily the specific ideas, I think you will find it triggers off ideas in your own mind about how you can do stuff. Because unlike sometimes where I think PR can become this sort of theoretical talking shop, this was practical stuff. This was like how to do it today. Anyway, more details about Comms Question Time coming up soon. That's it for now. Have an absolutely wonderful couple of days, and I will speak to you real soon.